focusing mostly on like what's positive, right? It's like the world could be burning, but look how bright the fire is. Great. Well, everybody that we've interviewed today has a degree. Tell me about yourself. Not school, not I want to be employed because.
What does a commonly rejected CV look like?
You have your own metrics of success within your job role, right? Which also you should know. If they are not there, you should demand them, right? Because every job should have a metric of success. Because how else are you going to say, I've contributed 1, 2, 3? So again, it goes back to you being an active, present employee. Wherever there's power in people, some people will try to misuse it, abuse it, or manipulate it. Did you ask for a dummy pay slip? And I'm like, oh, what's that? They're like, literally to avoid such situations, because a person will lowball you and then eventually say this amount, but because they are like lying in any case, they're still trying to lowball you. They'll still find ways to cut corners, right? So it's very important that you ask for like a dummy slip, and then you can see the estimates and rough calculations of the salary. Gratitude brings about optimism. You know, if you wake up and you're like, I'm grateful that I have this job. I worked hard for this job. I can conquer the world. It's easier for you to actually sit down and say, actually, I'm not valued here.
What's happening, everybody? Another episode with your favorite Mr. Cater. In this episode, I'll be talking to Lethabo Masekela. I think the other name is Rorisang, if I still remember right. And yeah, she says she's a general HR generalist. So she has a great background in psychology, industrial psychology, I think, to be specific. And we're going to talk all those interesting topics in today's chat. And yeah, maybe Lethabo, you can just introduce yourself a little bit and maybe a little background story of yourself.
Just to correct you, so my background is in general psychology, not industrial, right? So yeah, but otherwise, do I say good evening everybody, or just hello everybody?
Anything.
Anything goes.
Yeah, I don't know what time they will see this, but yeah, whenever they see it, they will see it. But yeah.
Okay. I think I'll just stick to hello, everybody. My name is Lethabo Masekela. I'm currently employed as an HR Generalist. And like Indy shared, I hold an honors in psychology. So yeah, pretty much that's me.
Okay. From which university did you get the honors from? Because I saw you just highlighted that you got an honors.
Oh yeah, so I did my undergrad at NW Mafikeng. So I think it was from 2016 to 2018, graduated in cum laude, whoop whoop. And then went on to do my honors at Medunta. So currently it's known as Sifakomakato, but I think the most popular name for it is Medunta.
Medusa is supposed to be medical and all those kind of things only. How is that? How does it relate?
So they kind of like, I think around 2016 or something, they kind of like added more curriculums, right? So initially it was like just medical only, like medicine, nursing, and all of those things. And then with time, I think they also added your BSc stream, right? So yeah, your mathematics and all of those things. And then when I was doing my honors, I don't know when they started the psychology program, but I remember I desperately wanted to come back home. I was like, I am tired of living so far away from home. And literally my dude has like 20 minutes away from me from home. So I was like, I am definitely going there. So I'm not sure when they added the psychology curriculum, but eventually they did. And yeah, it was kind of nice.
So it still is like a science university type of a thing. It's just more on it's extending on those.
Yeah, definitely. It's still a science thing, because even my honors, it's a BSc in psychology. So they still are very much sciencey. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd give you a very good applause, because some of us left school immediately after getting degrees. Like, nope, I'm not gonna go back to school, and then that's it. At some point, I had a mind about going to honors, but I think it faded away. So yeah, that's pretty good, and it's quite motivating.
I realized I actually kind of do love school because even now I'm thinking of going back and doing my master's, right? Because the
Yo,
plan initially, I know the plan initially was to become a clinical psychologist, right? So that was the plan, and I kind of like knew very early on that then it would be degree, honors, masters. I kind of like knew that very early onset. And then with the masters, I applied the first time, literally made it very far into the selection round, but unfortunately at the end I wasn't selected. And then after that, I kind of realized that I like it, but I don't love it, right? So it was one of those things. I was like, I like it, but I don't love it. So what else can I do with my degree? And that's when I ventured into this whole new world now. But now that I'm here, I'm like, you know what? I think I want to pursue my master's in research. So with the research, I kind of like have a way I can link it with my work. So literally, I was just checking university websites because applications are opening now for like higher learning. Oh yeah, next year when we have a conversation again, you might hear me saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a master's candidate," or something like that.
no, I would love to really surround myself with a lot of academias because I believe what we are doing here has to go with education. People who are really pursuing education and not just getting the degree and running away like some of us. But I mean, you're already talking about the university right now. How was it for
Yes.
you? I mean, when you started out, I mean, when you did your undergrad, I mean, how did you come to choose, okay, I want to be a psychologist?
So it was actually a very funny story, right? Because I was very much confused, like, what do I want to do? What do I like? And things like that. And I remember there was what do you call it? A career expert at my school. So there was this girl, she came and she started talking to us. And I won't lie, I was fascinated by like the little things because she was wearing like your Timberland boots, a weave. I was like, you know what, whatever she's doing, I want to do it. It looks like she looks hip, you know? Yeah, but then she was more of like industrial psychologist. And then when I probed her further on it, I was like, I don't think it's something I could enjoy. But then she like she planted the whole psychology seed, right? So obviously I went back home, started Googling what else is there. And then I found clinical or that kind of psychology, right? And because my mom is a nurse and there's like always books laying around in the house, she had actually an abnormal psychology book, right? So with abnormal psychology, basically it covers, okay, now I think I'm like talking to the
Go for
psychology
it.
people.
Go for
Go.
it.
It
Go for it.
covers the DSM-5, right? So basically with the DSM-5 contains all the disorders that you know or think of, like from depression to anxiety, symptoms and onset and things like that, right? And I was intrigued because as I read through it, I'm like, this is actually explaining a lot about like me, who I am, so like people around me and things like that, right? So I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna do this kind of psychology. So that's where it started, right? And 3 years in, I very much loved it. I think to this day, I always say yes, I didn't end up in like a psychology route, but I'm forever like thankful for actually pursuing that route, right? Because it kind of opens your mind to like a whole new world. Plus, I majored in psychology and sociology, right? So you
Mhm.
get to like learn, not, I don't want to say the cause and effect of things, but you kind of like learn how the little things, if left unattended or ignored, they can just like grow into this enormous big things, right?
Mhm.
Like with psychology, it focused more on the self, and then sociology focused more on society. So it was like a constant reflection of like, okay, this is me in this world. This is me in this world. So yeah, I would like kind of I liked what I went into or studied, if I can put it that way.
Nice. I mean, before I get into deep, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
we, we spoke the word psychology and we assumed everybody sort of knows it. Can you just give with a simple one-liner what psychology is and what is the study? I'm assuming it's a study of the human brains, or is it, I don't know,
No.
or how human behavior, no, human brains behavior and how somebody sort of how crazy you are, basically. I think that's how I sort of think about it.
Okay, I don't want to say misconception because some parts of it were right, and then some
Okay.
parts of it I like I guess the misconception that's around psychology and stuff, right?
Sure.
But you were right
I
in
was
saying
saying it
it.
in a positive way, honestly.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I
I
totally
always say
get.
people. I always tell people I'm a crazy person, so I'm just sort of thinking then my psychology is towards the other side. But yeah, sorry, you
Yeah,
can go ahead.
no worries. So you were right in that first part to say it's a study of human behavior, right? Like, um, yeah, it's a study of human behavior, patterns, personalities, perspectives, and all of those things combined, right? It's just the scientific. Yeah, it's basically theories that you know, I know, but then they just put it in words. For example, the learning theories. When you read through them, you're like, oh, I've always known this. I just didn't have the words to properly describe it. But when you read through it, you realize it's literally the study of just human behavior and evolution, throughout their entire livelihood, right? And I guess the abnormalities that come with you going through life and what can cause it, how you can see it, how you can overcome it, and things like that. So within psychology, there's like literally different modules, or can I say like streams. For example, I touched on abnormal earlier on, but then you have positive psychology that actually focuses on like resilience, motivation. And then you have social psychology that focuses on things such as conformity, um, if everybody's running, why are you also running with them? And it studies like literally it studies very like interesting things. I remember one of the things that got to me in social psychology was they were asking, so with the what do you call it, the Nazi war, right? They were actually
Yes.
asking the soldiers like, why did you kill? And the answer was, "Oh, because I was told to," right? And you'd assume that because you were told to kill and you killed, and you'd assume, oh, people with time evolved, they wouldn't do that. So what they did, they actually had like an experiment where they gave somebody like voltage, right? Like, I don't know, you see those things you use to jumpstart a car, like
Sure.
high voltage thingies.
Sure.
And then the instruction was you ask them a question. If they get it wrong, you up the voltage, right? Simple as that. And then they tell you that after like 200 something, a person will literally die, right? So now you start and you ask me a question, I get it wrong, you up the voltage. You ask again, I get it wrong, you up the voltage until it gets to 200. Now that's where the dilemma starts, right? Are you gonna keep upping it, or are you gonna like say, no, no, this is wrong? Funny enough, people kept upping it, knowing that the person would die. And then when they were asked, it was like, oh, but the instructions said to keep upping the voltage. So such nice. I think I forgot what it was called, but it was a very nice. So like I said, you have social psychology, and then so you have different streams of, then you have personality that dives in deeper into different personality types, right? Like you have your introverts, your extroverts, you have a wide array of personalities, and basically it probes into them, and then they are classified. Like you have your behavioralists. Those are people that like it's straight, it's structure, it's that, like, that's how they think. And then you have like people that are like very empathetic, right? And then they fall under, I think it was the human, I forgot the right word for it, but they like function more humanly. Like it's not about science, it's not about what's right or wrong, but it's like, how would Andy feel in the situation,
They're like a people pleaser, basically.
Not a people pleaser. I wouldn't call it that. It's more of focusing mostly on like what's positive, right? It's like the world could be burning,
Okay.
but look how bright the fire is. Like look at that orange. Like look at that.
Look at that. Look at that shape. Look how big it is. Beautiful.
Look at the fire touching the sky. Like look at the fire meeting the mere. Like look at the mere fire meeting the heavens. Oh my gosh. So perspective.
Okay. So, I mean, you literally dished out everything that I can think of in psychology, right? But then I think the legendary statement you used when on the questions that I sent you before, you said psychologists look at the theories on how we feel, what motivates us, and obviously personalities. And obviously you got fascinated by how psychologists can just put those things in simple words, because Sometimes, I mean, if maybe we didn't really have good words to describe, let's just say, okay, I'm feeling hot or something like that. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, it will just kind of be, a very weird situation. And I mean, psychologists take it further by taking up other things that we might not necessarily see on a day to day and then bring it up and then sort of
Yeah.
have a description around it.
And also quantify it, right? So I think that's like
Okay.
a very important part of it. It's like quantify it, because sometimes we know these things, but you can't quantify it, or you can't measure it, or you can't, So that's also another element to it. Hence, it's like a science also on its own, because you cannot just say, this is human behavior without actually proving it or quantifying it or measuring it. So you have to like back up your words.
Maybe to put it in context, right? Have you ever found yourself in your life applying most of these principles in your day to day life, be it work, be it at home, be it with friends? I mean, are you the one that reads people's mind and then you sort of manipulate them with that?
I get that a lot, which makes dating very hard because as soon as you mention psychology, everybody's like, oh my gosh, are you trying to read my mind? Which is not the case. But one, I don't read minds. Two, you cannot even read minds. So I think for me, I wouldn't say literally applying those principles, right? But I think what I can say to that is that you have more understanding of people, if I can say that. I think from my end, well, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but for me personally, you kind of like develop this understanding for people, right? It's like, okay, cool, this is Andy. Maybe let's say something happened to you today before this chat, right? Like I've talked to you before and your energy was here. And then today you join in the call, but the energy is like here, right? And I'm trying to figure out, like I'm there like, this is not the same person I met last time. What could be the issue? I think with me, I approach things in that manner, right? To say, okay, things happen. What happened? Like you develop this sense of understanding for people, for situations, and you kind of realize that a lot of things come into play. So a person's mood can be literally determined by like so many things, right? So instead of like charging at you because you're low or angry, I can just simply stop and say, what could be the reason? You pause, take yourself out of the situation and become objective.
I see. I see. Okay, so then I guess it has also to come with, you need to really have genuine interest of people. You need to really be caring in general. And I think that's what sort of makes you maybe a good psychology. Am I right? No? Or do you have to
I'm not
just see an event as a situation and you only treat the situation, not not really sympathize with people? I mean, how do you guys then separate both that?
because I'm not a practicing psychologist. I don't know professionally how they do it because I'm not a practicing psychologist, right? But from like the knowledge that I have, and because I, even in my current role, I do work with people a lot, right? So another thing you like kind of like learn is that there's a difference between sympathy and empathy, right?
Okay.
So sympathy is me seeing you and I'm like, shame, right? And then empathy is me seeing you and understanding your situation, right? So I think it's, for me, it's just always important to like not lead with sympathy, because then when you lead with sympathy, you kind of like remove the objectivity of it and you start things like, well, if it was me, or I wouldn't do that. And now it becomes an I thing, not an Andy thing, right? But had I stopped and said Andy, then it would have been an Andy thing, not a I. So you don't function from a place of
You don't put
self.
yourself forward, basically, in any
Yes,
situation.
and you don't explain things with the merits of your understanding, right? You just can't say, oh, but if it was me, or if it happened to me, because in actual fact, it's not
Mm-hmm.
you and it didn't
Mm-hmm.
happen to you. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we need a lot of psychologists on social media because I do see a lot of people bashing each other. And I'm like, but sometimes just think from a point of, the other person. Because, I mean, if if you got scammed, it's not like you choose to get scammed. It's just that a scammer is much smarter than you at that moment. And it happens. But yeah, otherwise, let me not question so many things around psychology. I think we have interesting stuff around end-to-end recruiting, general HR work, and obviously it's a very nice scenario in the HR space, right?
Yeah.
You were telling me about how your university was like, right? How did you then transition to then saying, okay, I'm from university now, I'm a qualified psychologist? I think it was after you got your honors as well. And then you say, I'm going to look for a job. Which job did you look for? Did you just go to, because I mean, with psychologists, mostly we hear that the person work as a social worker or they work at a psych ward. And, there's these defined roles or jobs that we sort of know. How did you do it different yourself?
So, firstly, I was not a qualified psychologist, right? So, to be a qualified psychologist, you have to do your master's and then register with this HPCSA and then write board exams. It's a whole thing, right? So, I'm not a certified psychologist or anything like that. No, no, no. What I did was I studied psychology. But after honors, the transition, to answer your question, the transition, I think, um, because I still had, like, after my honors, I still had an interest in pursuing clinical psychology. I started working at a special school, right? And I think that's where I realized that this is not like that route is just not for me. But with like finding interest, I think I just always knew that I like being around people, right? Like I like, yeah, I like being around people. I like sharing. I like talking. I like, yeah, I'm just like a people centered person in that exists, but I'm like that. So that's one element about myself that I always knew. So even when I wanted to make that transition to say, cool, I'm abandoning this route, where can I go now? I was like, okay, cool. What's out there? Like what other opportunities are out there that, number one, I can like use what I currently have, which is my honors in psychology, number one, and would also allow me to just like continue being this bubbly, talkative, interactive person, right? Because I felt like when I was working at the special school, I kind of lost that, right? Because you have to, I don't want to say put on a display, but there's this sense of you have to be like stand, like you have to be stand, you have to like say no and mean it, you know and I'm not that. I just knew like I am not that. Like I'm not that. Yes, I can be like strict when needed, but overall that's just not me, and it would just take me out of like being me. So I was like, let me go find something that's me, right, while I can still apply all this knowledge that I have. And I started applying for HR roles, right? And that's how I ended up in training, because training is in some ways part of HR. And I ended up in training, and it was exactly that. You get to interact with people, you literally get to travel, So I liked it. I liked it so much, and I was like, how can I grow further into this career? Because I think I like it. So yeah, the transition for me, what helped the transition was to like just sit down and say, who are you? What do you like? Yeah, and then let's work on that.
I think I saw some other thing at the Northwest University that you were doing. I think you had a part-time job there or something like that.
I remember in my first year when I got to varsity, I was struggling. I won't lie. Like I was, for some reason I was struggling. Like I feel like when I say I was struggling, I'm not really capturing the struggle. But I was like struggling to make friends. I was struggling to like adapt. I was struggling to like just understand, right? Because it's 7, like from 7:30 to 8:30, you're in a public administration class, right? And literally it's like chapter 1, chapter 2, assignment. And you're like, whoa, I don't even know the arms of government. Wait a minute. Right? And then literally 20 minutes later, you are in like another class, research methodology. And it's again, wow, referencing all of that. And it just became like a lot, right? And I think I'm one of those people, when I get into a space, I kind of like, I kind of want to shine, right? Like, I won't lie. I am one of those people. I'm like, when I get into a space, I want to like not necessarily be seen, but I want to give it my all, right? So, yeah. So, because I couldn't understand what was going on and everything was just like a lot, I think I started breaking down, right? But luckily, me and my brother went to the same university. So I remember I called my mom one night and I was crying and I'm like, I can't. And then she called my brother. She was like, "Come on, wait, I go check on the child." So literally, my first year, I was literally hanging with my brother because number one, I struggled to make friends. I don't know why, but I did. Then so somebody suggested, they were like, since you struggle to like meet people like one on one, it seems like, because when we are in a group setting you can talk, or when you have to like present you can talk. Like, talking is not the problem. It seems like initiating or maintaining is the problem, right? So why don't you join social groups? And I was like, okay, that's an interesting take. Because they were like, no, in social groups, it's basically people like you, people that kind of feel like they want to be out there, but they don't know how. So I joined this other, what was the name of that group? I forgot the name of that group. Oh my gosh. I forgot, but it was something buddies, right? And we would meet every Friday. There was like a park within the varsity. We would meet every Friday there, and it's just like a weekly catch up. How was your week? Oh, my week was fine. Oh, this and that and that and that, right? Within that group, I kind of like started making friends, which was nice. Because now you meet people with the same genuine need, I guess, if I can call it that, as you, right? And interest as also. So yeah, that was that. I joined that group, and then I started coping a bit better. Second year, the person that actually started the group that I was in was a facilitator, right? So I used to attend his classes. And he would have he would start the lesson, teach, and then 5 minutes at the end, he's like, let's just share personal things. Like, let's just get to know each other, right? So then we would ask him like, how what's the process of becoming a facilitator? It's like, no, long as you achieved like an 80% mark on that module, you can apply. So when I was doing my second year, I applied to become a facilitator, right? So I facilitated psychology modules for, yeah. And then that year I became a mentor. So as a mentor, you now take care of the facilitators, right? So it was like a build up to that, which was very nice because you kind of like learn professionalism even before you get out of varsity. Like, you kind of learn professionalism, like you kind of learn accountability. If they say it's the 28th, submit your registers, you kind of learn that, okay, I'm employed, I have certain responsibility. If I have 2 classes in a week, I need to make sure I catch up on the module stuff, I attend the lecture if I forgot something so that I can just refresh my mind, because you did it a year before. So some of the things you may have forgotten, right? So it kind of teaches you a sense of responsibility, sense of professionalism. And I think that's the first thing I took that helped me in my first job, right? Here you are as a graduate, you enter a working space, and because I just very fast, it was like matric at 17, graduated at 18, 19, did my honors 2020, yeah, 21. So by 22 I was done and I was already in the working space, which is generally very young. Right? So you enter the space and it's all adults and you must also pull your weight. So I think having a sense of, okay, I'm employed, I know what to do. If you're given a task, you do it. If you don't understand, you raise your hand and you ask. You understand. I don't want to say protocol. Is protocol the right word? No, it's not the right
Yeah,
word.
it is protocol.
But you
Sounds
understand.
political, but yeah, it's protocol.
Yeah, but then you understand the chain of command, if I can call it that, right? You understand that if I was a facilitator and I needed something, I had to go to a mentor, then the mentor would go to the academic advisor. As a facilitator, you just don't jump everybody and go to. Also, as a mentor, you learn that I'm a mentor. For finance, I go to this person. I cannot jump this person and say, oh, I don't understand.
As you're telling your story, did you realize that you got to get your degree and as well as the hands-on experience? The reason why I'm saying that is because you will finish after this statement. The reason why I'm saying that is because you saw that in your first year you had a problem with socializing, which I think you spoke about sociology, which is a study of how you can blend in with people and all those kind of things. And you put it as part of your task and then you went to do it. There's many people who would always say, I'm an introvert, I can't do this. And they just then write that bold line and they never gets to do it and never gets to, try what needs to be done. Because unfortunately, your socializing skills are needed if you're going to work. Unless otherwise you're going to work at a dorm and you're just locked and you're alone. Sure, maybe you don't need it. So, I mean, do you understand you did a double win there at the university?
I think I was very intentional about it. I don't want to
Nice.
lie. I was very intentional about it, and I think um for me being intentional about things, that's like, I don't want to say that's all that matters, but if you're like intentional about things and you have like a plan, I don't want to say the boring 5-year plan, but it actually helps, like having a plan in mind to say, I'm here, I want to go here, here, here. What do I need to jump from here to there to there? The first year, not so much, but with the second year, I was very intentional about it because I remember when I was doing my first year, like I mentioned, my brother was doing his third year, right? And that's when he started like, okay, cool, I need to start like applying, internships and all of that, right? And I would help him with that. And you realize they would need things like references, right? But if you don't work or you do nothing, who's gonna be your reference? Or if nobody can vouch for you, who's gonna be your reference, right? So I think I was very like on intentional about it, like especially like seeing my brother, because I was like, he didn't do a lot of things in varsity. He went there, he studied, and now he's trying to apply. And literally, the CV is just your degree, right? Which doesn't really separate you from other people that have degrees. Yeah, it's like you have a degree, great. So does he. So does she, great. So I think with me, I was very intentional about it. I was like, okay, cool. What will separate me from just a degree on my page, right? So I was like, okay, number one, references. Also, if you have like experience, you can speak Nyana. Also, it came with money, right? So all those extra curriculum activities, you get paid, right? And because so my mom was paying cash, right? So second year, yeah, she was still paying cash. And obviously, you do get your allowance, but it's not enough. And you really don't want to burden your parents to say, oh, there's a concert today, or I want to go with my friends, or there's this cute dress that I saw at Mr. Price. So what do? You're like, okay, cool. What other ways can I start making money? So I think it was like also that, like, you're like, okay, cool, I can make money. I can build up a professional profile, if I can call it that. So yeah, I think I realized very early on that you need to find ways to separate yourself from everybody.
From the pack. Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that because remember what we just spoke about is as well what plays a huge role in your current role. I mean, you do end-to-end recruiting. And I mean, for the longest time, you've been talking about graduates. Hey, there's a graduate position that has opened and all those kind of things. And I mean, as much as we people who are applying for jobs don't necessarily want to look at recruiters as the, what do we call this thing? I don't want to say the only thing in the recruitment process, but it's very, very important. I think because you are the guys that can say, well, this CV can go to the hiring managers or not, because you sort of then look at some of the things there and stuff like that. I mean, does it matter that I used to have be part of a, let's say, a social group in university as part of my CV? Do I even have to write it? I mean, I'm a graduate looking for a job now.
You have to write it, right? Like I always tell people, because I remember when I started, well, I moved from graduate hiring now and I focus more on like senior talent, right? But when I joined, I remember I did attend a few varsity career fairs, right? And like somebody would come to you and it's like, I won this award. Should I put it on my CV? I'm like, yes. Do you know what it takes to be top 1%? Do you know what it takes to be
Yeah,
like
sure.
top 1%? It's your achievement. Put it there, right? So it does help having those things like I mentioned, right? I think everybody, when you're in recruitment, there's some sort of bias we don't want to admit, but there's some sort of bias that kind of like come into play, and it's your job to kind of like remove those biases from you and just focus on the job at hand. But obviously, if you see someone's CV and they just recently graduated, right? For example, it's me and you, right? We both graduated cum laude. Great. We both have good looking transcripts. Great. Already that's like, okay, cool. We are like
The same.
on the same level, right? But then your CV, for example, has I helped the local shop in my village to create an app. Here's the link to the app. And I can open that link and actually see your work. It's like, oh, okay, that's nice. Impressive, right? And it's not that the other person cannot do it, but the other person didn't put their foot forward or didn't, what's the word, showcase their skills or something like that, right? So now the other person actually has something to show other than just their
I need
transcript
a
or
job.
their.
Oh, I need a
Yeah, I
job.
need. Yeah, because everybody else needs a job. That's just the reality of it. So it helps put in those things. Like it can even be like I mentioned, I was a busybody. At some point I was residence leader. And I remember at some point I was residence leader and I still have certificates to this day, right? And I remember when I was like applying for the first time, I would put those certificates because it shows that, oh, this person actually, number one, you can communicate, because you cannot just be a leader without knowing how to communicate, carry your views, sway opinions. So it shows that, okay, we kind of like have a candidate that can stand out there and project or talk or express, right? So, and I remember even with my first job, my first ever internship, literally when I got there, the hiring manager was so nice. To this day, I still talk to her. She's like one of the nicest people I've ever met. And then she had like my CV literally on her hand, and then she was like, great. Well, everybody that we've interviewed today has a degree. Tell me about yourself. Not school, not I want to be employed because. She was like, everybody essentially that we interviewed has a degree, wants a job, like. So just tell me about yourself. And when I started unpacking that, oh, I was a facilitator, this and this. Part of it was collecting registers. The challenges was getting people to listen to you, commanding a class, and you'd be in a space where, like I mentioned, when I was doing my second year, I was like 18. So you'd be like in the position where you are 18 and very tiny, right? And then here's ND, a very adult with a child in age, and then you have to tell Andy, you're disturbing my class, so you have to. So I remember I was telling like those stories and I was like, yeah, 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 yeah. And it was like, great. We are actually looking for that, because in this industry you have people that like throwing their weight, and we need somebody that when that comes you can still stand your ground and say, but the rule is, so now I had something to offer, and I had like an example of it, and I had, stories to tell, because also, for example, you kind of now show that I have conflict management resolutions. So You carry, like, you bring those things into conversation, and you have more to talk about. You have more to, like, work around and showcase your skills, as opposed to somebody who were like, oh, if you were in a conflict, what would you do? And they don't even have an example of a conflict or even understand what conflict, right? Cause and it happens cause and it happens, right? Because now you're asking, and unfortunately, those are like standard questions in every interview, or
Sure.
whether it be a graduate position, an intermediate, or a senior position. We want to know, how do you resolve conflict? But if you're a graduate and you don't have understanding of, one, what is conflict, how to resolve it, and you don't even have an experience to back you up and say, this one time somebody didn't submit their registers and then they wanted to get paid, which is a conflict. Like, you don't have those things to, like, show that I can do this job. Obviously, ultimately, the job will go to a person that can, vouch and show skills to do the job. So it's very
Basically.
important. So, answering your question, it's very important to put them on your CV. It's very important to, like, when you're in varsity, make the most of it. Get into projects. If there's, for example, if you're in the tech world, get into hackathons. If you are, in a social science field, I know with social sciences, there's always, like, those opportunities to say, if you're, like, part of the top 10, the school, I forgot what the name of the programs are, but basically you can do your third year in Germany or something like that, right? And a lot of people don't know about that, because I remember even when I was in varsity, like I mentioned, I majored in psychology and sociology, right? So I remember for the sociology students, there was literally that opportunity to say, if you're part of, I think it was like the top 10 or something, you apply and you get to do your honors in Germany. How nice. Everything paid for. But a lot of people didn't even leverage that, because they were like, it's like, I don't know if you don't know or you don't have that genuine, But imagine coming back and you're looking for a job at, like, a UN office, and you start your story by, when I was in Germany, Kinda
And you
makes you
even
stand
throw
out.
some.
Yes, wunderbar. I would just be there, like, yeah.
It looks like you went to Germany yourself, because I just said they're very good German.
No, I didn't. Unfortunately, the opportunity was for people that were registered for sociology,
I
right?
see.
So
I
it
see.
was mainly for sociology students. So I didn't. But I think, if it were the other way around and sociology was like my first major, I would have went. But yeah, so you have stories. I think it also just goes for getting hobbies. Like, for example, like I mentioned, that at the social group, right? I realized very early on that, oh, I'm having issues with socializing. And it even goes for hobbies, because when you get to, like, when you get into a workplace, right? I often see people, they kind of, like, keep to themselves or withdraw or things like that, because they don't have hobbies. It sounds funny when you say people don't have hobbies, but build those. People don't take you. It's like,
Seriously.
yeah, but you realize that hobbies are actually a social, how can I
Maybe a
phrase
point
it?
of reference, or one of the topics you can also use to socialize with other people. Because if you find
Yeah,
somebody who also games in the office, then you can easily, connect around by just talking about a
connect
very crazy
around
game.
people, right? And I
Sure.
think I use that thing even now, because where I work now, when I started, I know myself, I'm like, it's gonna take a while for me to warm up. And then I asked, are there, like, any social groups here? They were like, yeah, we have a hiking group. And I'm like, I love hiking. Can you guys please add me? And then they added me to the group. And then that's how I started, like, knowing individuals within the organization, right? Because it's a random Saturday, there's like 15 of you, you go hiking, and then from the hiking, somebody will say, oh my gosh, there's um sip and paint next week. And you're like, oh, that's nice. Can I join? I've always wanted to do a sip and paint. You see, now you get to know people via interest and hobbies.
But what about people who have data that depletes? I mean, it's like that. It's like my social data is depleted. I mean, all those things that you spoke about right now, they require you to be somewhere around people. Do you have maybe other things that you suggest to
I
such,
think
or
that
it's like you just have to do it
no, no,
somewhere
no, no,
somehow?
no, no, no. No. Somewhere, somehow, you have to do it, because you have to put yourself out there and talk to people, number one, right? But also, you have to be mindful of what works for you, right? And what fills you up. So for example, it's not every activity that you actually have to do with people. For example, if you're a gamer, it's a very much in my room alone, yet I'm interacting with people sport, right? So find gamers. You still maintain your social battery, you still do what you love, but you still keep a circle of people around you that
Somewhat.
when needed, or if you're in a public space, then you don't have to be alone because there's Tepo. Hi, it's
I
Tepo.
see. Yeah.
So yeah.
Sorry, Tepo, we used your name here, but yeah.
Hi, sorry.
I love that, right? But let's go back maybe to the whole end-to-end recruiting. You spoke about something interesting. The tell me about yourself question. Many people come with the, you can't laugh. It's a very serious question. Many people talk about, tell me about yourself. Hi, my name is Andy. I went to this school and this and that. And they just literally just go and recite whatever that's on the CV without even the source and obviously without even the unique story about themselves. Do you have a structure that you would suggest or that you use yourself to sort of answer such a question? I mean, whenever you talk to somebody, what makes a candidate stand out with that tell me about yourself question?
I think number one, answering that question just gets better with time. So don't feel bad the first time if you butcher it. It happens. You have to do it like 20 times or more before you get into a chair and they're like, tell me about yourself. And then you like comfortably can tell people about yourself. So if you're starting out, don't beat yourself up. We all started there. It's a very, question,
better
right?
one.
Yeah. But I hear you when you say people kind of like start parroting what's, out there. Like you said so many times that it sounds like blah, right? But I think with that question, it's very important to like just highlight, because what I do, I'm just gonna start with what I do and what I've seen people do, right? So what I do or did was, like I mentioned, you have to find ways to highlight what you can do very early on, right? So it's like when you're telling people about yourself related to the role, that's like what I usually did. Like, for example, hi, my name is Lethabo. Oh, I have an honors in psychology. When it comes to work experience, I started out as a assistant educator at the special school, and the experience was so nice. So now you get into the experience of it, right? Because that's where people actually start noting down what to ask you next. So don't make it, I'm Lethabo, I have a degree, I have 5 years of work of experience, I worked here, 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 thank you. No, like you literally can take the whole 5 minutes if you can, like unpacking what you do, because that's where the conversation starts, actually, to be honest. That's where, if I'm listening to you and you're like, I worked as an assistant at a special school, and the role entailed 1, 2, 3, and the challenges, and what I loved about it was 1, 2, 3. And honestly, it's a job I'll do again because I learned 1, 2, 3. You're telling a story, and I'm already picking it up like, okay, you mentioned challenge. So now I can ask you on that, like, okay, you did say that the challenging thing was this. How did you overcome it? Now it becomes a conversation, and that makes the whole interview even much more smoother because it doesn't feel like an interrogation on your end, but more so of a conversation.
I mean, I've heard of seen as well, got to experience that most of the maybe recruitment specialists or hiring managers also get to interact better with a story that talks about maybe things that they're interested in, or things that are challenging, or things that maybe they are sort of learning something on. And I think maybe even on this whole tell me about yourself, that's where you just have to go say it, because you don't even know what they like, what they don't like, and stuff like that, and what's sort of interesting to them. Because you might find somebody's interested on how an egg hatch or something like that.
You're very much right with that. That's what I'm saying. When you make it a story, people get to like pick points where they can start conversations. So in me saying like a whole lot of things, you might be like, oh, she mentioned chickens. Maybe I can bring in how
I
do
see.
eggs hatch? Do you know?
I see. So one way or the other, you need to be a good storyteller, and you need to
You need
write your own story. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you need to be. And I've realized that a lot of people have like a really, really struggle to articulate themselves. Like people really do struggle to articulate themselves out there. And like you find someone and literally you're like, only if you like speak up, even just like projection of your voice, right? Because it kind of like determines the mood. If you get there and I'm like, hi, how are you? And you're like, I'm good, and you? Like,
It's like you're trying to charm me in some way.
not even tap me, but no, I'm just there like, how, what's happening? It's like, do you know where you are, right? So it's even the simple things like that, just like voice projection or, how you sit down. And I think with me, I think maybe I became very conscious of that very early on because I remember, I think I did mention it when we started that so to enroll for a master's, you have to go through a series of interviews, right? So one of the interviews, it's like they try to, how wanna say they try to break you apart, ne? But they try to break you apart. So for example, when you get in there and you sit down, your posture is very important. Because if you just like they'll tell you like if you're bored, what do you think that will do to us? Most you're boring us. It's fine, you can stand up and leave. Like they'll say things like that. So I think from very early on, I was very mindful of such things like posture, how you like project your voice, how you look at people, how you carry like I don't know, can I say certain conversations or some things, right? So yeah, I think it's very important, Shema, I won't lie, that you practice articulating yourself. You don't have to talk a lot. And I think that's also the misconception with people, right? Because somebody will say, I don't love talking. Yes, you don't love talking, but we're not saying here you're not talking, here you're selling yourself. Like it's not a conversation with a random Lethabo. It's literally you showcasing who you are, your skills, So you can, for that moment, I don't want to say put a mask on, but for that moment, you literally need to come out of your shell and,
Go fetch the high
articulate
energy.
yourself.
Yeah, go fetch
Yes.
the high energy. Be there, like be fully there. Just be excited to be in that moment.
Yeah, be there, be present. And then when you leave the room, you can go back to being you and not wanting to talk. But I think it also goes back to what you said when you said if you don't want, like, what if your social battery depletes? When I mentioned hobbies, right? And you're like, what if it depletes? I remember I did say that at the end of the day, you need to put yourself out there. And like, you
Have
need
any other
to. So
choice?
yes, you don't have it. So it's things like that. Like learn how to articulate yourself. And I think the tell me about yourself question will get easier from there on.
Love that. Perfect. So this is an interesting one because you guys are the ones who do this
Yeah.
responsibility a lot, right? But what does a commonly rejected CV look like?
A commonly rejected okay, I have to think about it. Just give me
A commonly rejected CV, like every time if a paper is passed in front of you and this paper looks like this, I'm not even gonna read the first two lines. It's like pass.
I think the structure of your CV
Okay.
makes a whole lot of the structure of your CV actually makes a huge, huge, huge difference, right? Because one, let's say I'm looking for CVs on the internet, right? And then the format is just up and down. And I have other 100 CVs to look at. And I was like, okay, next. So the structure of your CV is actually very, very important. Like literally, how can I phrase it? So you know how with this apps nowadays, you can literally go to Canva or yeah, make use of those tools. Like I've realized people don't really leverage technology that much. Like literally go to Canva and say CV template. It will give you like a wide array of CV templates, right? And then you can choose from there and then edit and structure your CV in a very colorful, attractive, structured way, right? But then you have somebody, it's 2025, and then you'll have like a Word document. Just the Word document. I'm not saying we don't consider those because at the end of the day, experience matters, right? So I will sit down and go through your CV and just like try to understand and try to see if you have what we are looking for. But with that being said, it's 2025 and you find somebody, it's number one, it's somebody fairly young, like 21 or so. I'm definitely sure you do know how to use a laptop. I mean, you're a graduate. At some point, you had to sit down and type up your assignment. So you can sit down and type up something, right? And then you find like the CV, it's a Word document that's not even aligned, right? So that already is like, how? Do you not take me serious or do you not take yourself serious? Who are we not taking serious here, right? Because you do have these tools. Literally, you can just go to Google and say AI CV help template, and then it'll literally help you. So going back to your question before I like
Go for it. No, just go take it however you want it to be. It's interesting because you're talking about the things that are quite important on a CV, which I think that's what makes it not be rejected if it's good.
Yeah. So leverage technology, number one. I think for me that's that. Leverage what's out there, number one. Two, before you submit something, look at it first, right? Because you can tell that somebody typed up something very fast and then just sent it to you. No, like sit down and read through it,
Proofread.
refine it, proofread. Just make sure that all the information that's there is like correct, up to date. Because you find somebody, for example, the heading will be HR Generalist, right? That's the heading on their CV or something. And then as you read like maybe a bio, it's like as an HR intern, you're like, how? What are you exactly? You know? So it's the little things like that. Cause now I'm like, how? Are you lying? What's happening? You know? Just proofread, leverage technology, make sure that it's visually, do I say appealing? Is the word
Sure.
appealing? Right. Yeah. Visually appealing, right? Because if you open a document, and everything is just all over the place, and then there's a picture there, and then it's like, whoa, where do I focus? So make sure it's visually appealing. Yeah, I think if it doesn't have those elements, and that's when it gets rejected, right? Like, yeah.
Have you ever maybe reject a candidate or had to communicate to a candidate that was rejected because of a reason that was not related to them not fitting the role? And how did you feel around that?
Unfortunately, it's part and parcel of the job. Like,
Sure.
it's part and parcel of the job, because on the other end of it, after I call you the rejected person and let you know, there's also another person that I call and say, congratulations. So it's it's one of those things, like it comes with the job. But I have had to like relay the information. And I remember when I first started, it was so hard, right? Because I'm like, yes, I also used to be that person on the other end waiting, for, I hope this email finds you well. So I kind of like, at first it was hard. I won't lie, at first it was hard. But also I think depending on, because with recruitment it's different steps, right? So depending on like the level where the rejection happened, for example, if it's just the application process part where it's just viewing CVs and you applied via PNet, and then maybe you don't have the certain required experience or qualification, it's much more easier because you just move the CV to like reject, and an automated message goes, right? So you don't feel, it's still sad, but it's not personal. if I can say that. It's not personal. But then it gets more personal when, let's say, it went to the interview round, right? The person came, and it's even much more sadder when literally it's like two candidates that are good, but you can only take one, right? It's even sadder there, right? Because it's two candidates that were both good. And then at the end of the day, the hiring manager was like, we'll go with Lethabo. And I have to call Indy. They really liked you, but the other candidate, had much more experience or something like that. I will like send an email after this, but I just wanted to like, personally relay the information. It's even much harder than, but yeah.
I see.
It's part of the job, I guess.
It's part of the job. I think we've spoken a lot about end-to-end recruiting, right? But the last one that I would like to say, right? The only time I interact with HR is during hiring, and I never get to interact with them ever again. am I missing something valuable from HR support within the organization? I mean, what else can I do with an HR other than just saying, I don't know, understand why this bubbles comes, this AA
I was
stuff.
about
But
to
yeah,
ask, like, what are we celebrating?
yeah, maybe they're thinking I got hired. You see, hiring? Okay, didn't. So what are the other maybe things as well, maybe that I can get from an HR that are quite valuable when I'm in the organization? Because that's the only time I get to talk to them, when I get in and when I get out, or when I'm in trouble.
And I think a lot of people come into the workplace with that, right? So number one, it kind of makes your job as HR very difficult, right? Because people see you as hire, fire. Oh my gosh, I'm in trouble, right?
Sure.
Unfortunately. But then there's like a whole wide array of things. For example, where I currently work, I'm also responsible for retention and wellness, right? So with HR, another thing that you can get is literally support with the retention and wellness part. So basically, what we do is, we would send out surveys, right, to like people. There's like different groups, a men empowerment group, a women's empowerment group, and also just initiatives for everybody in general. So, for example, I'll just give an example with the women's one because it was International Women's Day, literally the past week. So, literally, you just ask the women in the organization, what do you guys want to learn, right? And then they tell you. So what I did was I asked what they wanted to learn, what they felt like they needed, empowerment, I guess, in, and then they gave me their feedback. And with that feedback, I went out and found a speaker for them, right? Like to address all those things. And after the session, I was like, how was it? And they were like, yo, it's very, like, it was very fulfilling to like see a person that looks like you, has the same troubles as you, yet they've managed to build up resilience, right? So it's very nice to like learn from that. So with answering you, we kind of also support wellness in the workplace, right? So if you need support in terms of, it can even be something personal, right? Like, hi guys,
Is it
I'm
safe
struggling with.
though?
It is safe. It is. I know people have this view of that. Oh, it's for the organization, not for the people, right?
I love that.
Obviously,
Let's continue on that topic. Yeah.
yeah. Obviously, I cannot speak for other organizations or other HR professionals or other entities. I cannot speak on that, right? I can only speak on me, what I do, and currently as an HR person where I am, what we try to do as HR. I can only speak on that. So, like I mentioned, it is very much safe because number one, for example, you mentioned something like, I only know HR when I'm in trouble, right? But if you speak up first, you don't even need to get to the trouble part, right? For example, if you're going through something personally, and that's the reason why you cannot do your work, right? If you voice it out to your manager, and then maybe HR is involved to try to help you. Maybe they can get like an EAP at a workplace, things like that. Then there's no need for it to actually end up as, I'm in trouble, because you involved people and they assisted. So you were equipped with skills to kind of like, solve whatever you're going through. And now you've avoided the trouble part of it, right? So it is very much safe. And I feel like a lot of people kind of look at you in HR like, yeah, they're out to get us. They're out to get.
Don't you get bonuses because you got us? Maybe.
No, that's not even. That's what I'm saying. Like, I cannot speak for other places, but basically, HR, from my understanding, is literally there to like help the people, help the business. Just, it's sort of like a facilitator between the people and the business. It's like, okay, cool. The business wants to go this direction. How do we get people to like also move with the business, right? While
Yeah.
also maintaining wellness, upskilling people, things like that. So it's very much that you're like a bridge between these two worlds.
Okay. I mean, you spoke a little about there might be other HRs who are not really doing these things properly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard of many psychologists or HRs or people, partners, and all those kind of things in organization using their skills to influence employees to stay at an organization. I mean, instead of helping employees out of their problems, right? So it's like, I'm vulnerable. Maybe I am, I don't know, let's just say my dog is sick. Make an example with the dog. My dog is sick. I come to it and, open up with HR. Hey, this is really affecting me. And I think it's also impacting my job in some ways. And can we have some sort of leniency for the next whatever, 1 week or 2 weeks and stuff like that? Other people would use other psychologists or HR. So, I mean, you guys are psychologists, one or the other, right? Are going to use that very same thing to sort of then maybe help the organization benefit in some way or the other. Either maybe when I was, let's say I'm thinking of leaving and all those kind of things. Are those things even ethical? And I mean, what should employees do if they find themselves in such?
Okay, first part of it, I feel like
Maybe
people that
can you agree with me or disagree? Do you know about such, or have you ever heard about that before you answer?
one, obviously you hear the stories, right? Like you can read online, people will share their stories. So it's not like it's something I haven't like read or came across. Two, I feel like wherever there's power in people, some people will try to misuse it, abuse it, or manipulate it. That's just unfortunately the way, like how some people are wired, right? With power, they want to abuse. I don't know why, but it's there. So I think it's you should be very careful not to like generalize everybody, but those stories do happen. And I think if you're an employee and you find yourself in that situation, there are ways to like, for example, you said, let's say you share a story, right? And the whole point of it was to get assistance, but then it's used against you, right? If I understood your question very well. That's why you have labor law acts in simple fact. If you are unfairly dismissed, you can dispute it and take people to like CCMA or things like that, right? So there are laws that protect you as an employee, right? Not just the organization. So I think as an employee, it's also in your best interest to kind of like get yourself clued up, right, on what's happening out there, the recent labor law acts, just to equip yourself with skills to say, if I get fired, what next? Or things like that. Also, I think one thing I have learned, or like one thing maybe I would recommend people do, is like keep records, right? For example, yeah, I keep records. People have this tendency of saying, it's Andy, I know him, right? And they don't communicate in the right channels. Like you don't send me an email to say, as per our conversation, please note, it sounds boring and mundane, but it's important, right? Should people try to manipulate or use their power against you? Because then you have something to say, but I did say 1, 2, 3, and you were aware of 1, 2, 3. So why are we here now? I think it's something also, maybe, I don't know why people struggle with it, but they don't. I think maybe you don't want to be viewed as a nuisance, or, I don't know what, but people don't really like keeping records, receipts, transcripts. They are very much important. For example, if I work with you and you're like, oh, Lethabo, here's a credit card, you can go buy, right? And I'm like, are you sure? And like you're like, yeah, I'm sure. If I feel like, okay, Andy's trying to do something to me here, you can just say, hi Andy, as per our conversation, this is what you said. I will use the credit card for 1, 2, 3. Thank you. I'll just also attach the receipts on this email. Done. It goes back to, remember when I said that when I started working, I had like a sense of professionalism because accountability, responsibility. I think also that's what's lacking in the working space. Like people come in and they don't wanna assume the role of an employee, right? It's like, no, it's ND. I'm used to him. He's never gonna do that to me. So people end up not doing things, I don't want to say the right way, but they end up
according to
cutting
protocol.
corners.
We have been talking about
Thank
protocol a lot.
you.
According to protocol.
People don't do things according to protocol. And then when exactly, I know it's a very weird word, but it's important to like and I think also like when I mentioned the labor laws, it also touches on the responsibilities of you being an employee, right? So if you're clued up on your rights, your responsibilities, how you should conduct yourself, what's misconduct, what's not misconduct, it's very easy for you to say, why are you guys doing this now? It's very easy for you to question.
Do you think maybe there needs to be like a course that really teaches us these things in the most blunt way. Because I mean, I've seen courses that we get when we get onboarded. You mostly taught about do not steal from the company, make sure that you lock your laptop before you stand up, even if you're at work, all those kind of things, so that even if it gets stolen, nothing gets into your trouble and all those kind of things. But do you think we need to, some of this training needs to go to a point where it would even say, if somebody really say, do this, make sure that you go to the email, and there's nothing wrong with that, because because I think it's like that thing where we judge ourselves, but nobody said it's wrong to just write an email and confirm what you
Yeah.
said in person, but on the email.
Yeah. Yes, actually. I think that kind of training is needed. Now I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
about it, right? It
Mm.
is needed because you're right. With most onboarding, it's like a general overview of this is the organization, this is our code of conduct. But it doesn't really drill down to being an everyday employee.
I love that.
Actually,
Everyday employee.
yeah, it doesn't really, you're right. It's actually needed because it doesn't drill down to it's 8 o'clock, you get in. It doesn't
I
drill
see.
down. And I think most of it is because we assume everybody knows right and wrong. We assume that, oh, you're an adult, you can make sense of things. I think that's why such training is not there because you just assume like, he's a capable adult. But it is needed. Come to think of it, it is actually.
I mean, even me as well. I got to learn such probably very late in my career. I mean, I was lucky because I used to spend a lot of time with the guys who have been there already in the industry. So they would sort of teach you some of these things beforehand. But then imagine now you just jump in and then you don't really have a buddy. You don't really have somebody that sort of shadows you with such, how to live every day as an employee
Yeah.
and stuff like that. It just gets interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's why with the current onboarding, like so most organizations are like actually revamping their onboardings, right?
Okay.
And it's literally a system. I think also your Apples, your Microsoft, your Amazons do it, right? So when
Okay.
you enter an organization, they pay you up with a buddy or a mentor, right? So on your first day of induction, you are Andy, you come in, and I'm like, okay, cool. Let's say we hired Andy as a HR man. Okay. I want something not dramatic. Let's say we hire Andy as a
Technician or something. Sure.
technician. Thank you. We hire
Yeah.
Andy as a technician. So they will find a technician, right, that has been there and is willing, number one, train that person to say, cool, this is how you be a mentor. This is how you like talk to a person. You can help them in one, two, three. So on your first day when you join, they pair you up with that person, right? To say, okay, Andy, meet Lethabo, Lethabo, meet Andy, if you need anything, just ask Lethabo. So it helps you kind of like acclimatize to the culture faster because now you have somebody that's holding your hand. In the morning when you get in, there's somebody that you can ask, hey, where can I find the coffee machine? How does it work? And you also have somebody sharing with you, like, hey, don't go there. You know what? It's better for you to do one, two, three. So I think to remedy that situation, that's why a lot of organizations now are adopting that whole buddy mentor system as part of onboarding.
This question just came to my mind as we were talking now. There are some other people who think making good relationship with their colleagues means that you need to sort of be my master and I'm the slave. When I'm like in the morning at 6 or at 5, or not 6, that's bed working. But yeah, at 8 or something like that, there's a cup of coffee in your table and all those kind of things and stuff like that. With people who have been there, some other people abuse such a power and they don't object to such. What can you say about those things? Because they do happen, hey? For me, unfortunately, I always just in front of me, if it's happening, I object it. Same time, hey man, you're not supposed to do this. Whether you're gonna look at me bad or whatever, I'd be like, go figure out yourself. I don't care. But I mean, what can you say on that from an HR point of view?
I think to answer your question, I'll start first as an employee and then go to the HR part, right?
Have you ever been through that?
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I'll answer
Okay,
it
nice
first as an
question.
employee. Yeah.
Sure.
Because I remember and I think it's this, what's the right word? There's a word for it. something syndrome.
Okay.
I can't find the word for it now, right? Imposter syndrome. That's the
Okay.
word. So, it happens because I remember even like this other job of mine previously. Literally, when I got there, you get there, there's people already doing that, right? Not there's already people doing that. If like the manager's there, they'll like, try to do all of that you've just mentioned, right? And it's easy for you to also follow suit when you join because you're like, oh,
This
I
is
guess they're
done.
doing that, it's done, right? And with time, you kind of realize, like, actually, no, I don't want to do that. Like, nah, I'm not doing that, right? But it happens quicker than you think, right? It happens sometimes unconsciously. Like, you're not trying to build this slave master relationship, but it happens unconsciously. And because you're trying to fit in, you start also doing these things, and then 2 years later you wake up, there's that whole dynamic of it's them, then it's you, right? So yeah, it's yeah. And then as now that I move away from as an employee to HR.
Just to summarize what you just said, you're saying that other people just do it because they see it happening, not to say that
Yes.
somebody initiated on them. And obviously, there's a
Yes.
case where they get initiated.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes you do it unconsciously because it's being done and you want to fit in and you don't want to get left behind. So you're like, what harm can it do? And then you wake up a whole lot of days later or years later and there's harm because now this person assumes that they are my like minions or something like that, right? Unfortunately. But in a workplace, I feel like if you find yourself in situations like that, number one, step back and why are you doing it, right? For example, if you were doing it to like simply fit in and you were not being coerced into the action, you cannot really say you were bullied into that action. You actively participated in it, right? Because there was like an end goal for you. But if it's on the other side where you were like coerced or bullied into such behavior, then it's something that needs to be dealt with. Like, and again, there's processes in the workplace, right? If somebody's bullying you, there's like a process that you follow to say, submit things and all of those things to say, this person is doing 1, 2, 3. And obviously, process will like follow you to say, these are the steps. Is like intervention needed? Do we need to move you away from the person and things like that, right? So I think the first step is if you find yourself in such a situation and it's not of your own doing, then the first thing is to just share it with HR and then solutions will come from there.
But I really love that you brought that point, right? Now we're going to go through a scenario based on what you just said now.
Okay.
I'm holding you accountable. But it looks like in many disputes at corporate or workplace, right? The manager or the boss or the leader always wins. It doesn't look like an employee or a general employee wins.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the case? And why is that the case? Why is it the case? Because let's just say, for example, I'm saying, let's make with the coffee thing. To say, okay, now I've realized I don't want to make the coffee for this guy because it's not something that I enjoy doing. And then I go and report, and this person is still forcing me. Maybe the manager or the boss is still forcing me to do it. I go and report to HR. It looks like at any given point, the manager will get to win. I mean, I've had so many situations or so many scenarios, people sharing with me, and there was never one that ever won through proper channels within the workplace.
Obviously I cannot speak to like what you've had or experienced or came across, so obviously I cannot speak on that. But I think it goes back to, you remember when I said that you need to be clued up as, cool, I'm an employee. What's my responsibility in this place? What are my rights in this place, right? So, for example, if you realize that, let's go back to the coffee situation. I'm being bullied here, right? Somebody's literally infringing on your right? That's like just number one, right? Number two, you need to find, I think with people losing out cases, right? I think it goes back to like an employee not being an employee. I don't want to like blame it on the person as much, but Andy is abusing me, right? And I don't do anything about it. I don't document it. I don't share it. I don't do anything. I don't, right? I just like let it boil up to a point where now I'm frustrated and I'm like, yeah, I'm taking Andy down, right? You also have to remember that, let's say it goes to a hearing, right? For example, you also have to remember that with hearings, you have to produce evidence, right? And because people generally don't keep that, I think that's
Because
why
they
you
want to be
find,
good, because they want to be good people at the
yes,
workplace. Sure.
you wanna be this person, and at the end of the day, when, let's just give an example, it escalates and somehow gets to that point, you have nothing to back your story up or corroborate your story because you as an employee were not, we're not, I don't want to, that's what I'm saying, I
You
don't
didn't
want to,
follow proper channels or processes.
our processes, right? And at the end of the day, here we are, it's just your word and his
Against.
word. And when it comes to word against word, then obviously the meta kind of like, do I say disappear, or it dies down, because now I can't say Andy did that and Andy can't say I didn't do that, because
I see.
where's the, so I think, yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's one of those things. It goes back to you knowing what you want as an employee, you being an actively, how can I say it? It's not like you're out to get people and
I
every
see.
2 minutes you're like, oh, email. No, that's not what I mean. Please do not like misinterpret my words. But, and also another thing you find in workplaces is that people are not willing to speak up, right? That's like the pain of it all, right? Like people will discuss in the kitchen, right? Like, yeah, Andy's doing 1, 2, 3 to us. Andy's doing 1, 2, 3 to us. And they say, as HR, you must act. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. I cannot run with hearsays and say, people said ND 1, 2, 3, right? At the end of the day, you, a person that's being harmed by ND, you have to take a stand, right? And say, this is what he's doing. This is wara. But a lot of people don't want to use their voices. And then the abuse continues. And then when it continues, and it grows and it goes into this something toxic, they're like, yeah, but you're just sitting there and doing nothing. And you're like, I'm just a facilitator of processes, if I can call it that. If you don't start the process, I cannot support you in that whole
What
thingy,
process
right?
am I going to facilitate if it was never started?
Exactly.
It's
And
like it's
that's
like
where
I'm looking for a process to start, which means at the end of the day, you as an HR would look like an instigator, because some of the situations the manager and the employee could talk about and then just resolve it before it comes to HR.
or simple. If you use your voice, let's say it's 5 people, they come out and say ND 1, 2, 3, and then there's like maybe WhatsApp messages or something. You see, there's like a pattern of behavior, there's weaknesses, there's evidence. It's easier to like sort out ND, if I can call it that, right? But if 5 people are quiet and experiencing the same thing and nobody wants to speak up, then unfortunately that behavior is gonna continue. And I think that's where people are missing it the most, because they see you there as HR and they're like, yeah, but you also can see it. And I think that's why people would say HR is for the
The
business, right?
business.
Because obviously, for example, there's a code of conduct, right? Do not
Is it
steal.
for the business, or is it for the employee, or is it a neutral force?
So that's why I said it's a bridge. You like facilitate between this side and this side. It's like, okay, this side is going this side. How do we get people to like move with the business, right? For me, that's how HR works. And then, so how you get to a space where people say, oh, but the business always wins, right? Because with the business, there's literally clear guidelines of what Indy is supposed to do, what Indy is not supposed to do, right? We give you a code of conduct to say, do not steal, do not fraternize, do not do all of those things. And you do them. You broke an existing law that's already there.
That you
Right?
agreed
So
to.
it's easy that you agree to, right? So it's easier for the business to say, okay, Andy, we are done with you. So that's why it looks like the business always
Always
wins.
win.
Yeah, that's why it looks like that, because usually people don't speak up and then their problems never really get solved because they don't speak up. But with the business side, if you stole, you stole. We can see the transactions. It's very clear. And they said, don't steal. So it's very easy to move to what's a hearing and, to
Yeah,
initiate that process. So
sure.
unfortunately, with things that bother people, if people don't speak up against them, they don't really end up being solved, if I can phrase it like that.
But since the managers and the leaders hold a very significant position within the company, does that mean the company is the managers and the leaders? I mean, and HR's role is to protect the company at all cost, and with the company being that, I mean, I'm just want to understand, because people look at it from that point of view, right? Like you explained right now, there is rules and regulations and all those other things that are there that you're already told to do these things. And to people, it's like, well, no, it looks like and this side will always win, as opposed to Lethabo coming with the fact that Andy didn't really look at me in a good way yesterday and stuff like that. I mean, I just to clarify a bit more on that, please. I think it's quite important.
Okay, so number one, no, HR is not for the business. Number one, I think I wanna be very clear about that. I think it's in the name, human resources. So literally, the focal point of HR is the human, right? As a resource in that organization. Hence the name, right?
I love it. I think maybe I wanted us to really stick on this for like 20 minutes. And what I got to summarize from what you're saying there, it's the company by default did a great job of compiling a contract that you're going to agree to, which means they kept their own document that you agree to, and then that you need to sort of follow. Do the very same thing as well for yourself. Should there be an unfortunate case where maybe you are dismissed wrongfully, and therefore you can say, well, okay, you said this, but then actually I also have a proof of this as well in this case. And that we can always do that with emails, with just documents, with making sure that we really do our job. I think the good way the good words we to use at corporate is cover your that word, because it's just more of, okay, you're here to do a job, do it, and do it right, and be really present on that. Okay.
And really be present and active on that, and just be clued up on your rights. That's what I'm saying. It's like people really do come to work, but they don't want to assume the role and responsibility of being an employee, and they turn it into like a buddy system, right? And then when things happen, you're like, "Ah, but," and unfortunately, it's work. It's not,
So
a buddy thing.
yeah, have a good relationship with your work. Like the very same thing people skip with money. Yes, you'd get money. Let's say you get 10 rands, right? But if you don't have a good relationship with money and you didn't read enough, or okay, you need to at least save or do something like that, that money, your relationship with money might not really work. Same applies to work. If you're an employee, have a relationship with the code of conduct, what an employee needs to do, what needs to not to happen, what are the lines that nobody else should ever cross, and stuff like that. And then really really know it, and really know your place within that such an organizational placement. I have like about last 2-3 questions, right? Let's talk about payroll and benefits. I think the biggest one, I only took one question there, right? As a payroll administrator, I'm pretty sure you do see people's money and salaries, right? You do see salary gaps between two people or two candidates. So, for example, let's say we have candidate A that earns more money than candidate B. Let's say candidate A earns 10 Rand and candidate B 20 Rand, right? But candidate A does so much better work. I mean, let's say the difference, like I said, it's 2 times. How do you process that? Like from a psychology point of view, like your psychology as a person, I mean, to start with, that doesn't sit well with you, because you know that guy is the most hardworking guy. But I'm seeing payrolls that are way too different here. And as well, how do you normally resolve that? I know in many cases it doesn't really get resolved. It's just more, oh, it's happening. This guy's happy, and let's life move on.
I think it goes back to you knowing what you want, right? For
Okay.
example, if you know I'm a hard worker, I contribute, and it also goes back to you skilling yourself. If I'm an HR generalist, I should always be aware of what the market pays, right? And with, like I said, leverage technology, literally, you can literally go on to Google and say, how much do generalists earn? One. It'll give you a rough estimate, right? And you're like, province, obviously people in Gauteng, Joburg areas get paid more and stuff like that, right? So you can tally up to say, this is where I'm at, this is what the market is offering, right? That's you on your own, right? You have privy to that information. You don't need HR, you don't need your friend. It's literally information you can get by yourself, right? If you sit down with that information and you look at, let's say, your pay slip, right? And you're like, nah, these two things don't speak to each other. They just don't speak to each other. One, you literally, you're not a tree. You can move. Let's just be honest. You are not a tree. You can move. One thing you can do is you can approach your manager and say, I feel like I contributed 1, 2, 3. Here's proof. If you're in sales, I've done 1, 2, 3. This is the margin or whatever language they use. If you are in, I don't know, recruitment, these are my hires. This person's salary was, you have your own metrics of success within your job role, right? Which also you should know. If they're not there, you should demand them, right? Because every job should have a metric of success. Because how else are you going to say, I've contributed 1, 2, 3? So again, it goes back to you being an active, present employee and being invested in your job, I guess, right? So again, if you know the worth of your job and you can prove it and you bring it forward and people are just dismissive, you're not a tree. Start looking elsewhere. Like start looking out there where people will give you the respect that you want or deserve, the money that you actually could be getting. Like move. I think people
You're not a
have this
tree.
thing of
I love
saying,
that.
honestly, I think people have this sense of, is it fear of change, loyalty? I don't know. But at the end of it, it's your life and it's not your company. So if it's not serving you, I always say that like a job should give you three things. Are you learning? Are you earning? Are you growing? If those three things are not met, go elsewhere. Like, like literally start searching out there, look for other opportunities because you put yourself in the situation where you now start comparing with, Andy just got here, even bought a car, and I've been here 5 years. Hey, 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 hey. But you forget that for Andy to be where he is now, he literally moved from there to here. And that's what happens, right? For example, a new recruit comes in, right? Because standards are always constantly growing and things and wara wara, right? You've been at a place for like 5 years and somebody comes in with more skills because they've been exposed to other things, right? They come in with more and then they can negotiate and then they kind of get a higher salary than you. Sometimes it happens. And then now you are there angry, like, yeah, even people are. What you forget is with growth comes change. You literally have to constantly find other opportunities if the one that you're currently in is not,
It's not really serving you
you
well.
know. Mm, mm.
Nice. Okay. I mean, what about these jobs wherein they negotiate your salary down? Let's say I say, guys, I would really appreciate 10 rands for me to join this new opportunity you have, and they come back and be like, we can only offer 7 rand. Is it am I being unreasonable to see this as a red flags during the hiring process?
You are not. I wish I was that person when I started working because I encountered a similar situation where I was like, I want 10 rand. And the person was like, yeah, we can
Yes.
only do 5 rands.
Ish.
Right? And I'm like, 5 rands doesn't work for me. Thank you. And then they called again. They were like, we can do 6 rands. I'm like, so if you had 6 rands initially, why didn't you just give me the 6 rands? But okay, still 6 rands doesn't work for me. And the person was like, we can do 7 rands. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll take 7 rands. Right? Biggest mistake of my life. Biggest mistake of my life. Because when I got there, number one, because they were trying to like
All you in some way.
lowball me.
Sure.
They still did, because there were
Even at
certain
work.
things they didn't, not at work, but there were certain
Okay.
things that they didn't disclose, right? Because they tried to make the amount attractive. So at the end, when you start working and you receive your pay slip, it's like, Aibo, this is not, this is not what
What we agreed on.
I yeah, I wanted, or I thought I was gonna get, right? And I think after that, that's when I learned of a dummy pay slip, because somebody was like, "Did you ask for a dummy pay slip?" And I'm like, "Oh, what's that?" They're like, literally to avoid such situations, because a person will lowball you and then eventually say this amount, but because they are like lying in any case, they're still trying to lowball you. They'll still find ways to cut corners, right? So it's very important that you ask for like a dummy slip, and then you can see the estimates and rough calculations of the salary. So I learned a very important lesson after that. Like, walk away unless you can say, I'm okay with this amount. Like, it should be a you thing saying, I'm okay with this amount, right? I'm okay with the reduction or something. But I feel like it's something that you should never be forced into.
I see.
Because I don't know, my experience with that was generally never good. So I feel like on that stand, I'll just always say,
Don't.
yeah.
Because I think maybe such behavior as well gets to continue as well when you're working for the company. Even when you raise something, it will always be reduced to a value that you didn't mean it to be. But if they gave you the value you wanted, even what you're saying and your consideration, your suggestions and all those kind of things, they have that which is what really matters. I think the last one that I have here, right? You spoke about your own personal values. You said you'd like to talk about personality and gratitude. Also, you said you really look forward to influencing workplace culture. Can you just sum that up? Because I thought maybe that would be very important, more especially with the role that you sort of have right now. Because, I mean, people sometimes think that HR people don't really have a life, don't really have a heart, they don't really have their own values other than the organization's value.
I think you did touch on gratitude there. So for me, gratitude is it's a very big part of my life, right? Like, also, I think it's just that one thing that I practice like on a daily, right? To say, be grateful for one, two, three. Like, especially if you start like, maybe I'm one of those people when there's a fire, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at the color, right? So
That
maybe I'm
faint
like,
blue, you know?
I mean, but I feel like in life, you should like be that, right? Like, be grateful for what you have, be grateful for what's happening, because we get into this like whole thing of I want, oh my gosh, in the next year I want to see myself here, 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 but you don't pause to say, I'm actually where I said I wanted to be. Like, thank you, God, or thank you, somebody, for pushing down the elevator to come pick me up, or thank you, Andy, for giving me like a CV template or things like that, right? We're like always in this I want, or I'm running, or I'm hustling, but you don't stop to like say, I'm grateful for one, two, three. And I realized that I don't want to say I'm grateful, but I realized that when you don't stop to actually take in what you've achieved, what you've worked hard for, you become grumpy. You become, how can I phrase it? I want the right word. You complain like about every little thing. It's like you see life as this unending thing, right? Like, yeah, because you never pause to say, I actually did good. Like, I actually, and I think that's something I try to like bring into my space wherever I go. Like, that's something I try as much as I can. And in the workplace, it's very weird when you tell people be grateful, because they always hear it as, are you saying I didn't work hard enough to be here, so I should be grateful that I'm hired, right? And I'm like, I don't mean it in that sense. I mean it in a sense that in a country where unemployment is so high, you are stressed by work. Isn't that like, like, not in a sense that you should forget who you are or what you want and just focus on, I'm grateful. No, I mean in a sense, just pause and reflect and be like, I did good for myself. I managed to move out of home and get myself an apartment in Centurion.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's
You
nice.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, today I went out with friends and I was able to buy like a 200 bottle of wine and a steak and laugh without worrying. I think that's what I like by grateful, I mean. And that's like something I'm trying to like bring into my space because you have people, right? For example, it's a work party, right? And the alcohol is free, right? For example, you have ciders, you have shots, you have everything, right? But then there's no beer. And a person will literally only focus on the fact that there's no beer, right? Like, oh my gosh, there's no beer. And now you make that your whole mood and your day's just ruined because you, out of the 10 things that were there, you chose to focus on one thing that was not there. You could have had gin, you could have had something, you could have actually used it as an opportunity to try something new, something outside of your everyday lived experiences. But you didn't take a moment to say, oh, wow, thank you for organizing and having all of that. There's no beer, but I'll try this today, you know? So I think that's what I mean by being grateful, even in like workspaces. So yeah, I'm having difficulty translating that into like work because once you say be grateful, people just assume you're saying be grateful for whatever you get and leave me alone. And that's not what I mean by it, but I'm like, yeah.
It sounds like saying, be grateful with your 5 rand salary, hey? Even though you wanted 10, be grateful with it because somebody else couldn't have it.
That's the challenge I
I,
face, right?
yeah. Because I think maybe the way they receive it just becomes they put your title to the statement and say, okay,
Yeah,
this is coming from HR. Well, this is what she has been told by the directors to tell us.
yeah,
Tell these people to be grateful, but from
yeah, you're
what
hired.
you are saying it from a genuine point of view, from a person to a person, than
Yeah,
through some sort of an organization in some.
yeah. So it's like person to person. It's like literally, there's like so many proven studies that gratitude brings about optimism. You know, if you wake up and you're like, I'm grateful that I have this job. I worked hard for this job. I can conquer the world. It's easier for you to actually sit down and say, actually, I'm not valued here. I can be valued elsewhere better. Because you have that sense of saying, I know I work hard and I've like taken time to reflect on me and what I want and what I
Mm,
can achieve as an
mm.
individual. And that's me. It's like a self-efficacy thing. It's you. It's not an organization, it's not your manager, but it's you. You did that for yourself. You are here because you brought yourself here. And you can go there because literally you have everything in you to take yourself there, right? And if you stop to realize that, like, if you stop to reflect that, oh, okay, I said I wanted 1, 2, 3, and I actually now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm actually pretty good at networking, or I'm actually pretty good at whatever you're doing. It means most I can apply, like, I can take this and move elsewhere. So for me, when I say gratitude, I mean literally that. Like, if you sit down with yourself and start saying, I'm thankful for 1, 2, 3. You kind of like also now start noting down your achievements. You start noting down, the things that you are good at because literally being grateful is you being grateful for what you have. Yeah, but I think one day I'll find ways to translate all of that into that like space.
Did you have a moment that forced you to start thinking like that, or you think you always used to think like that? Like, do you have a life story or a moment that sort of happened in your life and you're like, well, hey, I think I'm so negative about everything. I should just appreciate that I have water on my table.
Yes. I think it was round about 2021. Yeah, I think it was around about that, 2021, right? That's when I actually decided to make this whole transition, right? Like career change and stuff. I, when you plan your life to a T, right? You're like step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you rush through it all, right? And you think because you did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 6 is a guaranteed, right? And then life knocks you at the knees and you realize just because you did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the world doesn't owe you a 6, right? And now you have to sit down with yourself because here you are, you put in all this hard work to get to a certain place and you're so close, but you can't attain it, right? And you start going crazy because I mean, I've worked hard. I deserve it.
What more?
Yeah, like you feel the sense of, I think you feel like you're owed or something. You have that in you, right? And I won't lie, I think I nearly had a mental breakdown because literally when everything unraveled, I think I would only sleep for like 30 minutes in the entirety of 24 hours. That's how bad it got. Like I'd be awake. It would be 4 a.m. I'd still be awake and my mind would be like racing. And my heart would be like beating so fast. And eventually your body gets tired, right? And you doze off. And then 30 minutes later, people wake up in the morning and then you hear footsteps, you're up. Literally, that was like my life for I think 6 months. And I think one day, I don't know how the shift came about. Maybe I don't remember as like how it came about, right? But like one day, I just had to stop because I was like, at this rate, I'm gonna die or something. Like either I'm gonna go crazy, I'm gonna die or whatever. But I think I just like sat down with myself. I'm like, okay, cool. What have we achieved? And you got a bursary, you still got bursary money. 2, you graduated. 3, you're smart. 4, you're this, you're that, you're that. So how can we take this and make it work for us, right? And I think that's where the sense of constantly being grateful and reflecting came about. Because if you start forgetting all these things that you have and all these things that you achieved, it's easier to lose yourself in the noise of, yeah, but I wanted that life. Why can I not have that life? So you start losing yourself in all that noise, right? Because you don't even take a pause to realize that, oh, I'm here actually, and I have 1, 2, 3, and I could do 1, 2, 3. All because you didn't slow down enough to like stop, reflect, and be grateful.
I love that. I'm not going to add anything to it because it just sort of explains what's really happening right now. Like there's an AI race. There is a job post race when people are sort of racing each other to go to the next position. There is a family races in general, marriage races and all those kind of things. And
Yeah.
with what you just said, it's sure they can all happen, but give yourself time to just look at what you have and just look at that and then see what you sort of can do best with that without having to look at what you want. Yeah, I think I don't have any other question. I think you close it out there. I don't know if you have anything specific you still want to share here, but I believe, yeah, there's so much to still talk about, but we're gonna chop it off here.
I think we touched on everything. Okay.
Nothing else. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. I'm just going to say as well here, I really appreciate you joining here. This was a very long 2 hours. Sorry I took this long, but yeah, it was necessary. You really shared a lot, quite knowledgeable, and yeah, the people who are working with you at the same organization are quite lucky, I would say.